Okay, let's talk media accreditation, FIA accreditation, Formula One accreditation, media passes, Paddock passes, everything you need to know about getting access to a Formula One race weekend and being able to get that behind the scene footage that everyone is dying for. And especially if you're a content creator, which pass is going to allow you more access. So today we're going to talk about FIA accreditation and media passes. And I'm specifically going to use my experience over the last 3 years at the Austin GP, where I've had 3 very different passes. In 2021, I had a media pass. In 2022, I had a Paddock pass. And this year, I had a Paddock Club pass at the Austin GP. But I'm also going to talk about my experience working directly with Formula E, which is an FIA World Championship. And we're going to talk about all of these other stickers that you get on your phones, that you get on your lanyards as well with grid passes. So we're going to dive in and we're going to talk about all of these different elements. Okay, so first things first. There are a myriad of different ways to get passes, and with each pass there are a variety of different access levels that you get based on the pass that you are given. But before we go any further, there is one piece of information that is so incredibly crucial and important that most people seem to forget, is that any footage that you take, no matter where you took it from, belongs to Formula One as the commercial rights holder, and they can request it from you. Now we're going to dive into 2 main areas. We're going to dive into the FIA and Formula One accreditation, which is mostly for media, broadcasters and journalists. And then we're going to talk about the types of passes that you can get and the different access that you get with regards to these passes. If we focus first on the FIA and Formula One accreditation, this is obviously for the people who work in this industry, who actually need this access and these passes to be able to get the job done. And the first thing you need to understand is who gives you these accesses and how are they granted? Number one, there are different types of entities who can request a pass on your behalf. That would be the series themselves, Formula E, Formula One, F1 Academy, for example. Then there are the actual teams. Then there are the sponsors. And finally, there's also the promoters. So those are the 4 buckets of people who can request a pass on your behalf. Then there are 2 entities who can actually give out the passes. And that would be the FIA or Formula One. Those are the only 2 entities who give out accreditations. First of all, let's talk about media passes. This is anyone who's a broadcaster or a written media outlet. These are the journalists who are working the job day in and day out. And there are 2 ways that you get a media pass that is given to you by the FIA or Formula One. First of all, you've got permanent accreditation, and then you've got race-by-race accreditation. The permanent accreditation, as per the name, is a permanent pass that allows you to take part and be present at every single race. This isn't something that you just get. This is very much something that is earned. You need to prove that you are going to be a constant in the paddock. You need to prove that you are going to write or broadcast a certain amount of races and stories to ensure that you get this pass, which means that most people will start with a race-by-race pass. For both the permanent pass and the race-by-race pass or accreditation, you have to complete and fill out a form to be able to get that access. This is in no way, shape or form guaranteed, and there are a bunch of criteria that you need to fulfill. On behalf of whom are you writing? Is this a publication that is well respected? Is this a publication with large volumes of numbers? The form right now and the process right now via the FIA is still very traditional. So the likes of influencers and content creators will generally never ever get a media pass or media accreditation. There has been some instances where this is possible, but it is incredibly rare because the lens through which they are looking at media accreditation is still a very traditional lens. What's interesting with the race-by-race accreditation, which I think most people aren't aware of, is the request has to be lodged, or the request has to be made at least 4 weeks before the race starts. Most people, most publications, most journalists will only get a thumbs up around their accreditation a few weeks before they head out, which is complete insanity, but that is still very much the way this world works. And so it's constantly in flux. That's the FIA accreditation part. Formula One, F1 mostly spends their time on accrediting the broadcasters. That means anyone who's got a broadcast deal who is focusing on live action on track, the moving cars on track. Both the teams and the sponsors, but also the promoters, are very limited with the amount of footage that they can shoot or share. And that is true also as a content creator. You have to be really careful with the amount of content that you're capturing. And the big bucket of content that people always look at is moving cars out on track, because that content is very much reserved for the broadcasters who spend an incredible amount of money to have that exclusivity deal to be the broadcasters and to be the only ones that are showing moving cars and live footage. As a content creator, that is the number one rule that you will get, is never show cars on track. It is very different if you're a fan, and we'll talk a bit about that in a second. Another thing that's really interesting is behind each pass, you will see a couple of pictures. These pictures also tell you what other access you are granted. So it just tells you that there are different levels. Even with every pass that you get, there are different access points that you can and can't get access to. That's everything for the accreditation. Now let's talk F1 guest passes. These are passes that often look like this, or that infamous VIP pass. I genuinely thought that I would never, ever, ever lay my hands on one of those bright pink or bright green VIP passes, and I was very fortunate to be able to experience the access that that pass gives you this past weekend at the Austin GP. This is your normal Paddock pass. The other thing that I want to showcase is on every single phone that is allowed to shoot in the paddock, you will get a sticker like this. You will get a sticker that either says video or photo that you have to stick on the back of your phone. I peeled it off of my phone so that I could show it here. This is to tell anyone around you that you have been granted the right to film either still photography or video. So you will see photographers have this sticker stuck on their camera. People like myself, content creators or influencers, will often get that slapped on their phone. Guest passes like these are often given to you by a team, or you receive it because you're working with one of the sponsors or one of the promoters. There are also two types of passes depending on how busy a GP weekend will be or how busy a specific paddock will be. So you'll either get a pass with your picture, you can see mine here, at the back, or you will get a rotational pass, which is when someone from the team or the promoters will come and find you outside of the infamous paddock gates. They will give you the pass, you'll be allowed to come in, and once you are done spending that hour, 30 minutes, however long they will give you inside of the paddock, you will then get escorted out. In 2021, I had a media pass. I was working with an agency. Last year at the Austin GP with the Aston Martin team, I got a paddock pass and I was embedded with the team, and I spent that whole weekend basically with the team. I was doing a bunch of content. I was doing a bunch of interviews, and it was all about understanding the experience and getting all my questions answered. And that very much depends on the team and the experience the team wants to offer you. And I think that's where the difference is between an influencer that comes from outside of the sport, who is being gifted and given basically the royal treatment, versus someone who's embedded with the team and from within the sport, who is all about trying to understand all the nitty-gritty of the sport. I've always said this, I've always been very clear about this. I feel very, very, very fortunate and lucky when I get to experience these very VIP exclusive experiences, but I'm less excited by that than an all-access pass where I get to be embedded with the team and I get to walk into the team garage and hang out with the team and ask all of my questions. And so this year at the Austin GP, I was very, very fortunate to go with one of the sponsors, and I got one of the Paddock Club passes. That is this area on top of the actual paddock, and we'll talk about that in a second. That did not give me access to the paddock and the garage, and it's kind of one of the paradox of this sport is with the media accreditation, you are very limited in what you can shoot, what you can film, where you can go, even though it feels like you have an all-access pass. Whereas when you get the FOM VIP pass, you really are able to go wherever you want, and it's the most inclusive experience that you can have, in that you can go almost anywhere and you're not limited with what you can shoot and what you can post and what you can share. And I think this is where my ongoing question comes of fans can shoot whatever they want because they are paying for the experience to be live at a race, so they can obviously shoot cars on track and footage and share that on Instagram, Twitter, wherever they are fans. The media is very, very limited to what they can take pictures of. Even when they're working in the paddock, they can't just take pictures of the celebrities. And then you've got content creators who sit kind of in the middle because we're these professional fans. We are fans, but we are also working, and we're not quite media, so we don't have the same limitations as media, and if you would have a media accreditation. But I'm also very fundamentally aware that I cannot post pictures of cars on track. So we're very much in this incredible gray zone. I also want to share with you grid access. So these are my passes from Formula E. And you will see on all the lanyards, you have these stickers of different colors that are basically telling you that you're allowed on the grid. And it's the same with Formula One. On your lanyard, if you're allowed on the grid, you'll get a little sticker. And as the cars line up on the grid, and you will see all the teams getting ready for the race, and that's where you see the grid invasion, which is not the invasion of the fans, but it's the invasion of all of the celebrities. That's where Martin Brundle did his grid walk. You have to have that specific grid sticker on your lanyard to be able to access that. So again, it's not because you have a pass that you have access to that. And maybe one last thing worth sharing here, because I think the language is really confusing, and it's probably also one of the questions that is the most recurring in my comments section, is what's the difference between the paddock and the Paddock Club. With every promoter, it is different. But the way to think about it is this way. The Paddock is where you will see Will Buxton and the F1 crew and all the broadcasters. That's where all the interviews are being done. That's where you see the drivers running into their garage or running out back into their team hospitality. Everyone who is down there in the paddock is working. They are there for a reason. They have a job to do. They're either a mechanic, an engineer, a driver, part of the driver's team, team principals, broadcast, media, you name it. Paddock Club is that VIP experience, and the Paddock Club generally sits on top of the garage. So you will have a Paddock Club for each team, and each team has this incredible experience. And that is where people take that infamous Drive to Survive shot that's above the garage, where the cars leave the garage onto the pit lane in front of the pit wall before they go off to join the track. That is that infamous shot. You can only get that shot if you have access to the Paddock Club. And again, most people who have a Paddock Pass do not have access to the Paddock Club, which is generally an experience for the sponsors or for VIPs. So that's the way to look at the differentiation between the Paddock Club and the Paddock. Most people who have access to the Paddock Club will be given a FOM VIP badge so that they can go downstairs and also experience the paddock. This is why when people ask me, how do I get media accreditation? Most of the time I tell you, A, do you really need media accreditation? Once you have media accreditation, you're really limited in what you can and can't do. But also the reality is most of us will never get media accreditation because you have to be tied to a reputable media outlet to get media accreditation. And the second piece is then, how do I get invited to have access to the paddock? My preference is always to just have a Paddock Pass where I'm embedded with the team, because it allows me to be in the garage and talk with the teams, because that is the content that I create. That might be fundamentally different for a lifestyle influencer who wants to show the dream of the VIP experience. So there you go. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that answered some of the questions around the world of FIA, Formula One accreditations, and those Paddock Passes. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy these types of videos, please subscribe. This is a brand new channel. This is new to me. Let me know if you've got other topics that you want to talk about, if you've got other questions that you want answered. Thank you for being here.